G'day humans, Chris Stead here. I'm currently sitting in the Tesla Model Y 2024 variant and I've literally just sat down in my first ever Tesla. So I've never been in one before at all. I've just had a run through from old mate who works for the company. He's just taken me through a lot of the features and the settings and all the electronics and gizmos and this incredible screen that just does everything under the sun. So yeah, and of course this video I'm going to take this for a bit of a spin, test drive it for the best part of a week, and come back to you with my thoughts as someone who is completely new to the Tesla brand. And yeah, I'm really excited. I've always wanted to try one and see what it's like and see how it drives and see how that electric power goes. So it's going to be quite an adventure. Let's dive in. So what are my initial thoughts? And I literally haven't rehearsed this at all, so just what am I thinking right now? And at the moment I'm just thinking the usability is really cool straight away. I just love kind of how everything's computerized, I guess you could say. I love this roof. I didn't know why, but I never really picked up on the fact that it had this kind of see-through roof. I can't wait to drive it at night. I remember when I was a kid, you know, like you used to be able to lie the seats back flat in those old cars and just stare up through the back window at all the stars as you were driving. It was the best thing ever. I don't think I'll be looking up though while I'm driving. Yeah, it's got games, it's got TV, it's got Spotify, everything built in. The way that the cards works really intriguing, and also the way that I guess the gear stick, which is really just this thing on the side here that kind of does all your driving, is really interesting as well. Heaps of space, I fit really easily, so that's always a big thing for me because I'm huge. You know, I'm 6'4.5" and 100 kilos, big bloke. Sometimes there's just cars I get into that just cannot fit. No worries at all in this. Just heaps of space in the driver's seat anyway. Passenger seat looks even bigger. I guess there should be extra space in here, right? When it's running on electric, there's no all that mechanical stuff inside it. I'll be interested to see how I go in the back, so I'll test that in a bit. But yeah, so initial thoughts are super comfortable, super quiet, really lovely. So let's take it for a spin and yeah, see what I think afterwards. So I've been driving for another hour or so and just got some more thoughts, I guess, wanted to share. It's yeah, it's really easy drive. It's interesting, I've got the harvest thing on at the moment, so you can switch it so that it just kind of like just coasts when you take your foot off the accelerator like it would in a normal car, or you can set it so that it will harvest and it kind of really pulls back and like will actually bring you to a stop if you take your foot off the accelerator. And I've experienced it in hybrids before. But that's definitely something to get used to, the way you want to drive, because it just lengthens your range considerably. So that's going to take a bit to get used to people, I think. Love it. It's like absolutely pouring with rain right now, and I'm loving the auto wipers that's just been kind of coming in and out based on the velocity of the rain that's hitting the windscreen. It's doing a pretty good job. There's a few times where I've kind of wanted to, I've gone, oh, that's getting a bit bad, and then it's just done it, like almost as I thought I'd flick a switch right now. But then it kind of then goes again straight away. So once it kicks in, it seems to kick in pretty good. Visibility, because if you look at the back windscreen there, like that was kind of, like when I first got in the car and looked through the rear vision mirror, I was like, oh gee, that's not much space. It's gonna be hard to see people behind us, but it's actually not too bad because of the roof as well. And so when you look over your shoulder, all of it just feels like you can see a lot, even though it's got a kind of this small thing. And then the dashboard as well has got this 3D map around you of everything that's going on, and at first I was like, what's the point? Like, you know, by the time you see it on the screen you're already going past it, but I've actually kind of been catching it in my peripherals and it's actually been feeding me a little bit of information. That's interesting. When you put your blinker on as well, it brings up like a little separate little window showing you what's that side of you and what's that side of you, depending on which way you put the blinker. Blinker's interesting. So blinker's got like, you don't just flick it and flick it, it's kind of like, it's got like a tangible, like almost like an adaptive trigger on a PlayStation type thing. It goes down and then you got to kind of go clink it down. So it's not a casual flick. You've really got to pull it up and down. And my initial thought was like, oh, I don't really like this. I like, you know, I'm just so used to just that casual flick. You don't even realize you're doing it. But it's it actually kind of has like this experience to it. So it actually becomes like a bit of a more of a meaningful act. And I've actually kind of like, you know, I love getting in a manual and just zipping around like a bunch of bendy corners, going up and down the gears constantly because you're doing something. And so it actually feels like you're doing something. So I'm actually kind of starting to like it. Also been pretty impressed so far by the sound, and not just the audio because of the music, because that sounds great. Like not out of this world, but a pretty good clarity between the highs, lows, and mids. Just been listening to some other random dude's Spotify track, but it's been yeah, the sound quality is really good, really loud. But also the sound from the outside world. So when I first got in it, I could kind of hear a few bits and pieces outside, and I was like, oh, of course, there's no engine sound, so you're going to hear everything outside a lot more, but you don't. Too much to my surprise. You're basically just getting a kind of a cocooned feel. So they've done a really good job, I guess. There, whatever they've done to kind of trap the sound, is pretty good. The one thing that I straight away don't like is that at the dashboard, so what's directly in front of you, there's no screen through the steering wheel, so it's all just on this kind of side monitor, and because it's on the side monitor, you can't just look down and see your speed. You kind of got to look that way to see your speed. And I've just come out of the Sydney city, and it's just a maze of just ridiculous, like, just, you know, changes in speed just constantly, like school zones and work zones, and up this high, up that high, into tunnels faster, out of tunnels slower. It's just it's nuts. And I've had to, and you know, I'm in this car, it's not mine. I don't really want to rack up a speeding bill on it, so I'm just like being really hyper concentrating on my speed and just making sure I stay to the limit, and just not being able to see it just with a little flick down on my eyes and up is just, I'm not liking that at all. So that's something I'm not cool with. I really wish that there was a way of seeing the speed through the steering wheel and not having to look that way constantly. So that's something that I don't think I'm going to get adapt to, but we'll see how we go. But one of the other interesting things that's kind of come to mind is that bear with me. So when I was on the way out to pick up the cars on the train, right, and there were these two kids, so I don't mean to be condescending, they were probably like low 20s, so they're kids to me. And they were sitting on the train opposite each other. Let's say they were 22, something like 23, something like that. And the bloke was on a phone, and he had the phone in front of me, and he was doing stuff on his phone. And the girl was also on her phone, and also had full ear cup headphones on, right? And they're having a conversation at the same time. And this is just like super weird to someone of my generation, right? You know, we didn't have phones when we were on the buses when we were that age, so it was just, you know, you just, I don't know, you did whatever. You had chats to the guy next to you, you started a fight with someone, food fight, whatever, you know, like threw stuff out the window, like did all this kind of other crazy stuff. But that kind of experience of being deep in two digital devices at once, the headphones and the phone in your hand, and still having a conversation with somebody about what you're doing that weekend. It's just so hard for me to comprehend. And I was driving this car back, and I was thinking to myself, wow, this is kind of like a similar experience. Like, is this what my kids driving a car experience is going to be like? Like, I mean, I realize Tesla's just kind of a bit unique at the moment, but more will come that are like this, that have this kind of experience where you just, everything's electronic, and it's auto doing this and it's auto doing that, and it's got this information that's coming out of the screen. It's just ridiculous. And there's Netflix on here, and you can play video games, and the seat moving, and the quiet sound, and the harvesting of power, and all this kind of stuff. That's just so, it's like a different language to me. You know, like I grew up in an era where it was like, you know, I had a combi once where, you know, like you had to wear gloves and thick socks when you were driving, because the air from outside just came straight through the grill, you know, and there was no petrol gauge. We knew when we need to fill up the petrol, because we had post-it notes all over the front of the dashboard telling us like what the last Ks were when we filled up. And, you know, I had a Bedford once where the gearbox would just periodically just fall out when you were driving and just start scraping on the road, and you'd be like going 80 k's 100 k's an hour down the highway, and all of a sudden your gearbox is right down going in sparks. You gotta try and pull it back up while you're driving, you know. And I had a Commodore that you could start with a bread knife, and I had a Subaru once where there was no joke, there was that tree growing on the back seat, like out of the back seat, and the whole back window that was back there was just one big melted layer of plastic, which used to be a whole bunch of cassette tapes that the Australian Sun had got to. And if you lock the keys in the car, you could just pull the rust back on the bottom of the door and reach up the door and go ting, and open the door to get in. So that's kind of the era that I'm coming from, and I'm just getting in here. It's just like this. It's just other language. It doesn't mean it's neither's right or wrong. It's just yeah, it's just a lot to get your head around. So yeah. Anyway, the adventure continues. I'm about to take it in the rain down a very, very windy piece of road through a national park. I'm gonna give it some boot as well. So this is gonna be fun. Righto. So I just gave it a bit of curry and took it down a length of road just near my place, which is downhill all the way, very, very windy. It's really a lot of rain about, pretty slippery, and just yeah, gave it a nudge, and was performed really, really well. Pretty happy with the lack of roll, so it felt pretty, not too much of this going on. Pretty strong in the corners. Didn't get any slip with the wheels at all. Just like stayed on point the entire way. When you actually put the pedal down on these things, whoa, head went back. I was like, whoa, okay, there's some might there. So that was I was pretty happy with that as well. And this particular piece of road actually ends in it was to stop people hooning down there. There's 23 speed bumps in a row. It's a nightmare. But anyway, coasted over them. Just not too much, So anyway, suspension's good, roll's good, nice and tight, and the handling was really actually quite a lot of fun to drive. Also interesting is because I've got the harvest on, so when you kind of come into the corners and you let the foot off the accelerator a bit, it grabs the engine and kind of slows it down. It's very reminiscent feel to engine braking. Like usually if I was just going through the gears in a manual, that's what I'd be doing anyway, just saying chunk, 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 just like using the engine to slow myself down and power out, So it kind of has that similar sensation. It's not as much fun because you're not doing anything, but once I kind of thought of it like that, it actually, it was kind of cool. So, and also I started at the top of the hill at 80% battery, and then I got to the bottom of the hill at 83% battery. So the harvesting actually did something as well. Actually, there's one thing I forgot to say, and that is that when I was doing that drive, kind of weaving down through the forest there, I actually got motion sickness, which I've never got before, ever driving a car. And not only that, like I've driven down that road a million times since I was 16, so I'm not really sure what was going on there. I don't know if it was just this random thing or it was something to do with the car. So I'll test it again. Maybe it was just different windscreen, the rain, I don't know, it was weird. I've never felt that before. So to do with the harvesting maybe, kind of like that, like that, maybe something to do with that. And the other interesting note is I've just rocked up in my driveway, so I've got home and I don't know how to turn this thing off. How do you turn it off? There's no button, there's no keys. All I've got's this. Tesla, off. Oh no, guess I'll work that out.
So overall, I'm really impressed with the Model Y Tesla. In fact, I'm just impressed with the Tesla in general, but this Model Y variant in particular, I really, really like it, basically because it fits me so well. And one of the things that was really surprised me is just how customizable it is. And I guess the customization side of it shouldn't have been a surprise. It's, it's all computerized and so forth, but I just didn't think I'd be able to just turn things off. I got the impression that these things would take so much control out of the driving experience that it really wouldn't be that fun to drive, but it's not the case. You can toggle everything on and off. In fact, you can get so deep with the different customization options and how everything operates within the car and how the car itself operates that you can really kind of get it to exactly where you want it to. And that was a surprise for me. There's a couple of things that concern me. I'm concerned about the range. It's got a top out of about 454, I think it was. It says that's the best you're going to get ever. In best case scenario, harvesting the perfect amount, coasting at the perfect speed, all that kind of stuff. So you're probably going to get a fair bit less than that most of the time. I've definitely got a fair bit less than that in my time with the car. And I've also had the battery just drain on me, and that's a concern. So last night, as an example, I parked the car at the front of my house. It was at 48%. When I got in it in the morning, it was at 40%. It just sat there and lost 8% overnight. Was it a cold night? Yeah, it was a cold night, and batteries generally don't go too well in the cold, but that's a considerable drop. And I noticed it and went, oh, that's really bad. I've lost 8% there. And then I took off again and used my other car and then came back and got into it to drive to here, and it was down another 4%. So I lost 14% between drives overall, and that's considerable. And obviously you're gonna have to install a charger or get to a charger to be able to maintain that. So I'm worried about that. That's a concern for me. But if I'm talking about the moment-to-moment driving experience, just what it's like, I'm really, really happy. It's a lot of fun to drive. It's far more zippier than I would have expected. It just canes it up hills, just like belts up hills. The roll on it's really good. There's not too much bouncing, like the suspension I was really impressed by as well. And even though I started to feel a bit motion sickness at time, I think I'll get used to that. I think that's more the harvesting and the back and forth. I was feeling motion sickness that I've never felt before. I think I just need more time to get over that. But yeah, super zippy experience. And the fact that there's 2 models beyond this, and on paper they're a lot zippier and a lot faster again, I'm like, wow, okay, well this is really impressive to begin with. So, you know, I kind of really want to try the performance model now and just see how that thing goes. But yeah, overall, I've definitely enjoyed the experience of driving this, and for the first time in my life, really, I'm actually thinking to myself, you know what, I could actually drive one of these electric cars, which, you know, I wouldn't have said was possible even just a couple of years ago. Anyway, those are my thoughts on the Tesla Model Y. At the price point that it's at, yeah, it's absolutely worth considering, definitely worth a test drive at the very least. Okay, I'm Chris Stead. Thank you very much for watching. Make sure to check out my other videos, and until next time, I'll check you later. You.